will start this evening with the roll call. Suzanne?
Thank you. Mayor Levy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harvey. Here. Councilmember Carr.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Soinier.
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. If you will all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start this evening with the presentation of the Girls of the West, one of my favorite. I don't know who's going to lead that for us. You just come on up to the podium, sir, and give us your name and address, if you would, please, and we'll go from there.
Russell Freeman, and I live south of Yoder, Colorado, so I drove a long way to get here. But we're promoting the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo and the Street Breakfast. And I'm the president of the Range Riders this year, and I have this book's the history of the Range Ride, and it's just we gave it to the city council so you guys read it. And here's some brochures for the Pancake Street Breakfast and some bumper stickers and schedules. If you guys want to pass it along, take one, whatever you want to. Basically, the Pikes Peak Range Riders started 69 years ago. And the guys came home from World War II and realized the military needed some support, and Spencer Penrose Rodeo was going on, and the fund and that rodeo started supporting the military families and the community. And Pikes Peak Range Riders were made up just as a group of guys, city business leaders, to just promote that rodeo, just for the purpose of promoting the military. And the first ride they went, back then before Facebook and Twitter and all the fun things that we do to get promotions now, all the business leaders leaving Colorado Springs made a big news, and it was in all the papers, and they did a trail ride. And the traditional ride was riding from Colorado Springs, had a street breakfast, eat some pancakes, and they rode clear to Cripple Creek. And they either rode around the north side or south side of Pikes Peak. And because ranchers have conglomerated into subdivisions, and BLM is a little more hard to deal with, it's always our mission to make that ride, but it's been a little more of a struggle. The Bear Creek Trail deal they're getting straightened out this summer is going to help us get through the fish situation that held us up a few years ago. But this year we're riding on the Campbell Ranch over by Guffey, but we've ridden up never very far from here several times. Anyway, over the years, the Pikes Peak Range Riders have grown to, this year there's 174 guys on the ride. The street breakfast, which kicks it all off, is June 21st. That's a Wednesday. We start serving pancakes at 5:30. The military guys from Fort Carson come up and serve, and they've been there volunteering to serve for centuries. Anyway, so it's a nice community event. If you guys haven't ever been, there's a lot of Western events, and we clog up all Colorado Springs. And at 8 o'clock, you'll see 200 horses and riders right out of town, and there's not very many opportunities in life to see that. The Rangerettes and the Fort Carson drill team, the color guard, right out with us. So anyway, that's a little bit about the Range Riders and what we're doing. We'd sure like you guys come to the street breakfast, and we thank you guys for your time and your continued commitment to helping us out. I know when we drive through here, we fuel up, spend a lot of money in this little town trying to get to the ride. So we sure appreciate you guys holding it all together. We'll have Jeff come up next. He's the vice president of the rodeo board, and he'll give you his deal.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff Renahan. I live in Colorado Springs, and as Russ said, I am the vice president of the Pikes Peak Bus Board of Directors this year. Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'll be president next year. We'll be seeing you again, hopefully. The good news is that I'm only going to talk for, and it's less than 2 minutes. I've timed it because those lovely ladies are going to give you the real spiel of the rodeo. But there are just a couple things that I'd like to highlight. As Russ pointed out, Spencer Penrose started the rodeo at the Broadmoor, and he did it for the benefit of his guests. Following World War II, he decided and made the decision to give all the proceeds from the rodeo to military families in the surrounding area. And that tradition has continued today. This is our 77th year. And again, as Russ said, we just wanted to come and say thank you to all of you for everything that the support that the community gives. I know there's a lot of military folks that live up here, and that we appreciate the ability to be able to give back a little bit. We have about 300 volunteers that put on our rodeo. It's a nonprofit. All of the profits that we make go to our Rodeo Foundation Board, and then they cut the checks to the military families around Colorado Springs to each of the bases. The rodeo emphasizes two things. It's basically preserve and promote the Western heritage, the Western way of life, and then to help our military families. And that's kind of why I was drawn to volunteering. I'm a Colorado Springs native, but I spent about 25 years on a hiatus with the Air Force. So I had both sides, growing up going to the rodeo and then understanding what our military families go through. I had the privilege to command twice, and I can tell you that there's never enough money to go around to help our young soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. The things that we do right now go to things like supporting our spouses of deployed members, the child care centers, Christmas and Thanksgiving food baskets, those kind of things. And it goes a long way to helping those folks make their lives a little bit easier. This year we're also honoring first responders at our Thursday night performance. Again, this is something we believe is pretty important for all the work and the support that they do for us here at home. We have some flyers in the back that we'd like to invite everybody to take, and if you could promote putting that up in windows and things like that to get everybody down to the rodeo, we sure would appreciate it. And then finally, on behalf of the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo Board, I'd like to present this book, and it was made during our 75th anniversary, and it kind of gives a little bit of heritage of the rodeo. And thank you very much. All right, now the good part. I think I went just casual with too many. The girls of the West.
Hi, I'm Corliss Palmer, and I live in Falcon, Colorado. The Girls of the West program started in 1922, and it's been going on since then, and they were chosen as rodeo ambassadors, and that's still what they are. They're not just queens, they're ambassadors. They spend all summer, 2 summers actually, promoting the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo. We choose an aide during this year's rodeo, and she'll be the aide next year, and the following year she'll be the Girl of the West. We make about 150 appearances to promote the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo. So we're very busy, and we appreciate you having us for your meeting tonight. And the competition that they have consists of horsemanship, interview, speech, and appearance. It's pretty rigorous. Sometimes the girls try out 3 or 4 times before they make the aid. So it's important for them, and they do a lot for our community. Jamie Tyler is the 2017 Girl of the West, and she's the daughter of James and Sylvia Tyler of Hanover. She's attending Colorado State University in Pueblo, and she's studying biology and psychology. And she started riding gymkhanas for love of horses when she was young, and joined National Little Britches and qualified for the finals. She held many leadership positions in high school and was the valedictorian of her high school graduating class. And she rides an American quarter horse who's partially blind named Jolene. Sierra Silva is our 2017 Aide to Girl of the West. She's the daughter of Joni Duran from Black Forest. She developed a love and passion of horses and competed in Adams County 4-H program, where she graduated as a level 3 horsewoman. She likes to compete in English, Western, Gymkhana, and ranch horse. She currently works as a dental assistant and is planning to attend Metro State University in Denver and study chemistry and biology. And she rides a quarter horse named Whiskey Breeze. And I'd like to say we'd like to thank Spencer Swan. He wraps our pink truck every year, so you might have seen it outside, but we enjoyed riding around in that, and everybody knows where we're at. So enjoy the Girls of the West.
Hi, I'm Jamie Tyler, Girl of the West.
And I'm Sierra Silva, Aide to Girl of the West.
We're proud ambassadors of the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo. You'll see our Perkins Ram pink truck all over town as we head out to appearances at businesses, military installations, and community events. Why do we do it? Because we're passionate about the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo and the Western traditions it represents. Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo has a 77-year history in Colorado Springs and is truly part of the fabric of our community as well as the sport of rodeo. Visitors come from far and wide to enjoy top rodeo action and lots of family fun, all while paying tribute to our local military and their families. The dates for this year's rodeo are July 12th through the 15th at the Norris Penrose Event Center in Colorado Springs.
That's right, the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo runs Wednesday, July 12th through Saturday, July 15th, with performances at 7 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday evenings and a Saturday matinee at 12:30 p.m. There will be 4 performances of Invitational Championship Rodeo and a Finals Championship Shootout on Saturday evening. The best athletes in rodeo will compete for top prize money in bareback riding, steer wrestling, team roping, saddle bronc riding, tie-down roping, barrel racing, and bull riding. It's edge-of-your-seat excitement from the first event to the last. But wait, there's more. For the Wednesday and Thursday evening performances only, fans will experience a bonus event, American Freestyle Bull Fighting, where the 2 top contenders will go head-to-head for the cash prize.
There's lots to do before the rodeo begins. Grounds open at 4 p.m. for the evening performances and 10 a.m. for the Saturday matinee. Come early and enjoy all the family-friendly fun in our fan zone. Mutton busting prelims, our tryouts are tons of fun for everyone. Plus, there's a mechanical bull, pony rides, a climbing wall, vendor booths, and much, much more. You can grab a bite to eat, then get ready for the rodeo. You'll enjoy the precision riding skills of the Pikes Peak Range Rider pivots at the start of the show. Then, the lovely and talented Pikes Peak Rangerette horseback drill team will delight you with their riding skills as well. Our local military are honored at each performance. Fort Carson on Wednesday evening, Missile Defense and First Responders on Thursday, Air Force Space Command on Friday, the Air Force Academy at the Saturday matinee, and NORAD US Northcom on Saturday night. Since 1946, the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo has supported local military and their families.
Rodeo season kicks off with some other great events that our community loves. The Colorado Springs Western Street Breakfast is Wednesday, June 21st, anytime between 5:30 and 9 a.m. Enjoy great pancakes and eggs cooked and served by our very own Fort Carson volunteers. Tickets are only $5 and kids 5 and under eat free. Then, send off the Pikes Peak Range Riders as they head out of town on their annual 5-day ride to promote the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo. The annual Kitty Dress Up Review is Saturday, July 8th at 2 p.m. at Boot Barn on North Academy. Children ages 3 through 12 will be competing in 5 categories with awards presented to the top 3 in each event. The winners are invited to ride in the rodeo parade. The 77th Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo Days Parade is July 11th at 6:30 p.m. in downtown Colorado Springs on Tejon Street from St. Vrain to Vermejo. You'll see floats, equestrian groups, military units, and local businesses in this beloved Western event that is free to watch and fun for the entire family.
Then it's time to rodeo. Mark your calendars, buy your tickets, and get ready for Edge of Your Seat Championship Rodeo action at its best. The dates again for the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo are Wednesday, July 12th through Saturday, July 15th. Save money by buying your tickets online in advance until July 10th. Discounts are available for military, groups, and children. We're expecting performances to sell out, so don't wait. You can find all this information and much more about the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo at our website, pikespeakerbus.org. See you at the 77th Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo, July 12th through the 15th at the Norris Penrose Event Center in Colorado Springs.
We'd love that. We would. Where would you like us to do that? Up here? Girls, you want to come up? Right there? Maybe in front? I think she can get us all together. maybe somewhere in the middle of us. There you go, and we can, yeah, there you go. That's all you get.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
I did not hear the ladies mention wild cow milking competition. Is that going to occur this year?
Not this year.
I know.
Well, we thank you all for being here. I'm sure Mr. Freeman and Mr. Rahan, and I know Ms. Palmer are so proud of this group. Mr. Buttery and I were fortunate to be at the Fallen Soldier Memorial this past week at Fort Carson, and you girls, ladies, I should say, do a great job of representing. And, you know, we all thank you for what you do and continue success in your lives. You're two amazing ladies. Thanks for being here today. You bet. Okay, we will move on to item 3B in presentation of Parks and Wildlife Officer on deer and bear, excuse me. Is it Mr. Krenig?
Mr. Craning.
Thank you, sir. If you, yeah, just give us your name and address. And
Absolutely. Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public, thank you very much for having us here today. Again, my name is Tim Craning. I live here in Woodland Park. I'm your local district wildlife manager for all of Teller County. And we do have a couple handouts that I'll start passing around, as well as some business cards. And with me today is Julie Stiver.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, I'm Julie Stiver and I live in Colorado Springs. I am the local wildlife biologist for the area, and my primary responsibility is managing big game herds in the Pikes Peak region and some other areas around here.
Really appreciate Julie coming up tonight from the Springs. So anyways, today we're going to give you an update on our bear and mountain lion conflicts here in Woodland Park, as well as update on our deer population here in Woodland Park and the surrounding areas. So the last couple summers have been very good with forage for the bears. We've had a lot of acorns and berries for them. The mast crops have been very good. We've been very fortunate. However, this year we may have this late frost that we've had might have affected those. We'll see, time will tell. If that mast crop or those berries are affected, they're going to have food failure, which means the bears are going to come more into town, which means more conflicts. So just a good reminder to remind everyone, neighbors and everybody in the community, to make sure and lock up and secure trash. And I do believe we've had a lot of success also in the last couple of years because we have an excellent Bear Aware group of volunteers up here. And they've done an outstanding job on educating the public about bears and how to secure trash and reduce those conflicts. So they've done a tremendous job. And as always, if there's ever an issue, please get us on the phone as fast as possible because there's a lot of options up front if we're involved sooner. With that, we'll move into our deer population. I'll turn it over to Julie.
Thanks, Tim. Tim asked me to speak to you tonight about some of the data we have on deer densities in Woodland Park. And so I'm going to go ahead and present those data from a deer count that we did here in Woodland Park in February. Before I get into that, I want to talk just a little bit about how we collect data in the state to give you perspective on some of the techniques we use. In wildland environments, such as the National Forest that's north of Woodland Park and the area west of Woodland Park, we use helicopters. It's by far the most efficient and effective way we have for surveying animals, and basically what we do is we go up in the helicopter and we go to areas where we think there are high densities of deer, and then we count those deer from the helicopter, and we usually classify them as bucks, does, and fawns. We also, in places like urban environments or places like the U.S. Air Force Academy, where we don't have the ability to fly helicopters because of either concerns about horses, or obviously at the Air Force Academy there's a lot of military aircraft down there, and so we can't fly. So we do coordinated ground counts, and I'm going to explain that in just a moment. But we do collect data primarily by game management units. And a game management unit is a geographic area that Colorado Parks and Wildlife uses to distribute hunters and then harvest pressure across the landscape. Woodland Park is in Game Management Unit 511, and that's the area north of Highway 24 is in 511. And then the area south of Highway 24 is in Game Management Unit 59. So Tim approached me earlier this year talking about some of the potential deer conflicts we have in Woodland Park, and he asked me to help him design a coordinated ground count. So we conducted this on February 2nd of 2017. And basically what we did is we developed 5 driving routes around the city, and we basically tried to distribute these routes and places to get a really good broad count of deer within the city. The council members have this map in their hand, and then obviously members of the public, you can see what routes we used. On the day of the count, we had 6 vehicles that ran each one of these routes. The blue route that's on the east side of Woodland Park, we actually had 2 trucks running that route. And basically what we did is we drove around, and when we would see a group of deer, we'd mark their location with a GPS unit and then count the total number of bucks, does, and fawns that were in that group. After we were done with that count, we brought the data back into the office, and what we do at that point is we look at the groups and their locations, and we remove duplicates from the count so that we don't overcount. And so this is a conservative estimate that we get. I want to clarify that what these represent are minimum counts. They are not a census of the animals. We could never count all the animals out there. This is also not a population estimate. Population estimation techniques actually require quite a bit of effort, and they're quite expensive. And I'd be happy to talk offline with city council members about what kind of options we'd have for estimating population size. So I'm going to give you some data, and what I really want to do here is give you a perspective of what kind of data we get in various places around the state. Game Management Unit 511 is some of the better deer habitat that we have in wildland environments around here. And Tim and I spent about 4 hours in the helicopter surveying everything around 511 that we could get to in 4 hours in a helicopter. This year we counted 206 deer, and that's in an area that's about 360 square miles. That comes out to about 0.6 deer counted per square mile in that area. We do, like I said, the Air Force Academy is a very hard place for us to actually get in and do counts with a helicopter, so we do ground counts there. We have 12 driving routes in that case because it's a little bit bigger area, but it's a very, very comparable technique, and so we're comparing apples to apples when we look at the Air Force Academy and the numbers we have from Woodland Park. This year we had a really good count, and we counted 191 deer in an area that's about 27 square miles. That's about 7 deer counted per square mile. I found some data that we did in southwestern Colorado Springs. This is basically the Broadmoor Bluffs area. These data are from 2004, so they're a little bit out of date, but this will also provide you a good perspective. We counted in one afternoon, the high count that we had in one afternoon on a count in November of 2004, counted 240 deer in 12 square miles. That's roughly 20 deer per square mile. So Woodland Park, remember this is a conservative estimate. We counted 284 deer in what's the equivalent of 7 square miles. So that's just over 40 deer counted per square mile. And we think that we had a really good count here. So I think that the take-home message from these data are that the density of deer in Woodland Park is relatively high. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tim, and he's going to talk about some of the management implications of these data, deer and lions.
Thank you, Julie. So moving on, as a result of having too many deer in town, many things are going to follow. Part of that's going to be more vehicle collisions in town. We have more people coming in town, and you've all seen the deer on the side of the highway and the vehicles that have hit them. Major damage, and it's also a human health and safety concern. We'll get more into that. Also, there's more predators will come into the area, specifically the town. These will be mountain lions. Mountain lions are primarily eating deer, so they're going to follow the deer where they go. We'll get more into that here in a second as well. And also disease. With such a dense population of deer, it wouldn't be unlikely to have some sort of outbreak of disease go through the population. We do have chronic wasting disease here in Colorado, and I've seen it here in Woodland Park. I've seen some other diseases in Woodland Park. We do have diseases prevalent up here, so that's something we would want to monitor as well, and we do monitor. Deer become habituated to people. You've seen this. You've probably seen neighbors or someone in town that feed deer. Deer become very habituated. They want to come up and eat from you. That's also a human health and safety concern. I'll explain why here in just a few minutes as well. The last two you may think are more minor. However, in Salida and Buena Vista, these were two main driving factors in their urban deer management. When you have deer that are basically eating all the flowers, bushes, grass, trees, and no homeowners can grow anything, and they're also worried about all the deer droppings in their yard and the kids playing in them, it becomes more of a driving issue. So these are all results of having more deer in town. Work closely with the Woodland Park Police Department, and they're great. Again, I'm one person in Teller County, a county half the size of Rhode Island, by myself. So they handle a lot of these calls where you have to put down injured deer. There's 92 reported calls from last May to this May where there was vehicle collisions in there. There was entanglements or injured deer. Most of those were going to be vehicle collisions, though, more than half. We contacted Allstate Insurance Company to check on how many claims they get. From Woodland Park, there were 82 claims. This is just, keep in mind, this is just one insurance company that we're looking at here. And then the average cost you can see there on a claim from a deer vehicle collision is about $4,800. So not only is there a safety concern for people, it's also becoming a financial burden. It becomes very expensive. And as you can see, most people would think of elk or moose being the ones that are deadly. However, deer can also become deadly in these deer vehicle collisions, and we did almost have one fatality on Highway 24 in Cristola. With mountain lions coming into town, we've had a lot more mountain lions presence in Woodland Park this year. As you can see from the data that I have present, I came on district here in Woodland Park in 2015. We had 2 calls. I had 2 calls that year in 2015, 1 last year, and then 9 so far this year. Now, these aren't just phone calls that I'm getting and calling somebody back on. These are calls where I'm actually responding out, or Woodland Park's responding out with me on these calls. They're taking time. We're either going out and hazing the mountain lion, I'm putting eyes on it. Maybe there was a pet that was eaten by the mountain lion, and I'm seeing what went on, confirming that it was a mountain lion kill. Something is involving my time here with this call. As far as just actual calls of sightings and stuff, they're well above that. In 2015 and 2016, they were below 10. This year, they're probably above 30 of sightings and other calls. So we have more lions. This year, we did end up euthanizing 1 mountain lion in March. That mountain lion was becoming habituated to people. As with any animal, when it loses its fear of people, that's when it can become dangerous. That mountain lion did take a small dog while a person was talking to it at night. She was standing in her porch, and it was probably 10 to 15 yards away. So that mountain lion was dangerous. It was getting too comfortable with people, so it was euthanized. And then we did have a kitten that was trapped in a garage for we're not sure how many hours, but it was separated from mom. It was probably about 6 to 7 months old, could fend for itself sort of on its own, and it stayed around the neighborhood here in Woodland Park for 3 to 4 months after it was trapped in that garage. I was hoping it would link up with mom again. It never did. Gave it as much time as I could, and because it wasn't going away, I didn't want it to get in more trouble or get hit by a vehicle, so we went ahead and darted it with the help of Woodland Park Police Department. A huge thanks on that, and we got it to a licensed rehabilitator. So as I mentioned, people feed deer here in Woodland Park. Keep in mind, law enforcement is only a third of my job, and again, I'm only one person in the county. There's all those feeding complaints, 52 feeding complaints that I've received in Woodland Park. It keeps me very busy. Woodland Park Police, again, helps me out a lot. I depend on local agencies to help me. But it's illegal to feed deer, and it's mainly an education issue for most people. They don't know it's bad for the deer, and they don't know it's illegal. Once I'm able to educate them, they'll stop. But it is something that's very prevalent that I've seen in the town. This is something that wouldn't be uncommon to see up here, and it presents a danger. They have those antlers, and they can become very sharp. These ones are in velvet, so they're not sharp like you've seen most of the antlers, but they also have sharp hooves. So even the does can become dangerous. If they get habituated and lose fear, in other states they have actually attacked people. We've had numerous dogs stomped here in Woodland Park, 4 that I know of. So Deer Management Solutions, just presenting you with the facts that we've found, and you guys have different options as a city to see what you would like to do. Going through a couple of the options, I did pass out a sheet. That sheet is from Indiana Fish and Wildlife, and I like that sheet. It is slightly outdated. I believe it was around the year of 2010, 2011 when they put it out, but it is from their Urban Deer Technical Guide, and you can Google that. It'll be the first one that comes up, the Indiana Urban Deer Technical Guide, to read more about it. I like that sheet because it breaks down everything very simple on one sheet, very easy to read, and flows well. You can go through, there's fertility control and sterilization. I'll mention those both at the same time. Those both are very expensive, and you need about 80% of the population to have that birth control for it to even become effective. Again, it's very, very expensive, and it's not efficient. It does take a while to do that. Trap and relocate, our agency is not in favor of this, because if you're trapping the deer and relocating them, again, I mentioned we have disease here in Colorado, specifically chronic wasting disease, and if you're trapping deer here in Woodland Park that have chronic wasting disease, it's a positive area, and you move them, it can contaminate another area. Not only that, though, it's also extremely expensive, and about 50% of the deer will die during that because of stress. Trap and euthanasia, again, it's very expensive. You can donate out the meat. However, it's expensive and time consuming, and our agency doesn't support that. Sharpshooters can be effective, although again, it's another very expensive technique. You can see the cost there per deer. They add up very quickly when you're talking about the numbers that we have in Woodland Park. Finally, regulated hunting. It's the most effective, efficient way to control a population, and actually in our legislative declaration of 33-101, it states that Colorado will manage its big game herds with hunting or trapping here in Colorado. So with that, just wanted to leave you guys with some different options on the table for the dense population of deer that we have here in town. So I'm sure there's some questions, and I'll go ahead and fill out some questions. Feel free to talk to me offline. I passed out my business card so you guys can contact me. I'm happy to meet with coffee, sit down, and discuss options. What I'll be doing throughout the summer, too, is we'll have at least a couple public meetings where we can talk about these issues down the road. So anyways, any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Just a quick one, probably a stupid question, but is this disease that they get, is that something that can be, that other pets could pick up, or is it just for deer?
The chronic wasting disease is going to be specifically for deer or elk or moose populations. We haven't seen that it comes about in pets or humans, although there's still studies being conducted on that.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
These costs that you quote here,
Yes, sir.
is that a cost to the city, Teller County, or to the state?
Right. That would be a cost to the city. Those costs would be a cost to the city. We're here to help you manage the population. I'm here to help you as many ways as I can. However, the state won't end up paying for it. We are broke as an agency. I'm not sure if you've seen we did have a piece of bill that was trying to be passed in the Senate, and it did fail, but we are broke as an agency, so we wouldn't be helping.
Congratulations, we are too.
Sure thing. Yes, ma'am.
How would a managed hunt work?
Sure. There are several different examples throughout Colorado and even throughout the nation. So you can tailor it many different ways. And one thing I will say with the sheet being passed around is this is nothing new, especially to the East Coast. But here in Woodland Park, it would be something that the city council, city manager would end up looking at sideboards for that hunt. It could be very, very regimented. It could be you could be very standoff. There's different cities have different techniques. Salida and Buena Vista are a little more hands-off, whereas Elizabeth up near Denver is very hands-on and has a very regulated hunt. I've looked at both of those three cities, and they haven't had major issues. I know you bring up hunting in city limits, and that raises all sorts of red flags and questions. However, it can be done very safely. You can use archery equipment so that people aren't hearing things or seeing things. It can be out of the sight of the public. In Elizabeth, they go so far as that they have things in place where buckets of water and things, so if blood were to get on a sidewalk or something, heaven forbid, they could end up scrubbing that off, and that's the hunter's responsibility. And they also have to qualify with their archery equipment, and that district wildlife manager up there is very involved with the city and working with that program. So does that answer your question?
It does. David, have we ever explored that as a technique here?
Only to scratch the surface of that. We anecdotally, and we all have seen that the deer population that we are on our streets has just increased dramatically. The thing that concerns me is the follow-on of the mountain lions. Less about the deer, more about the mountain lions. And Councilmember Sonia, I know you were joking about the city being broke, but when it's written in the press, you don't quite put the humor associated with it. So we're not broke. If we needed to explore some process with this, we could certainly do that. But again, it's mostly for public awareness. I'm counting on our media to jot this down, to let folks know, don't feed the deer. And then we'll work with Tim to see what it is that we should do to address this. It's a very emotional issue for a lot of people. The deer look lovely. I saw 3 bucks nestled in the grass underneath some trees in a front yard. Those people probably enjoy that. So we have to be very careful how we go about doing that.
Would a managed hunt occur during a regular deer season, like bow season, or could it be any time at the city's choosing?
It typically is going to be in the fall during regular hunting season. There is some leeway to move it to a later season in November or December. However, it's probably best to have it earlier on without the snow.
Has DOW done any culling of our herd this year? I'd heard a rumor that had occurred.
I have gone around, and any that are visibly ill or already limping, I have euthanized those animals to help control the population up here, but it's really not going to put a dent in the population at all, just me. Like I said, I'm a very busy guy up here in Teller County, and that rarely ever happens.
We were shocked at the densities, as I think everyone here was, when you compared it to even the Air Force Academy, which is a lot of wide open spaces. So we'll continue to work with DOW and see what's the best thing that we can do.
Thanks.
I have several questions. I understand, based on the population density, is this a need or a want for Woodland Park? I haven't hit a deer, and I've lived here 18 years almost. It's just I've lived here. I know they're around. I take my time. I look around. I drive under the speed limit certain times of the day. That brings me to my next point. Did you ask, I guess, the Woodland Park, were most of these out-of-state residents that hit deer? I mean, that's an interesting question.
To answer that question, we did not pull it out to determine whether they're in-state or out of state. However, one of the other issues that we run into that we have not been able to quantify is when people hit a deer and do not call it in, and then we just get the report if there's a dead deer on the side of the road or a deer that needs to be euthanized. And so that number is very high. In the fall, we'll probably put 3 to 5 animals down per week.
Per week?
Per week.
I have hit a deer.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen many limping. I've seen many that have been hit limping or maybe missed a fence or something.
Could this just be an anomaly this year?
No, I do not believe this is an anomaly. We can continue doing our counts, but I do not believe this is an anomaly. The population is just going to continue to grow without anything controlling that population. Yes, there are some mountain lions, but the population is definitely growing much faster than the mountain lions will keep up with. And I don't know if Julie has anything to add on that.
I mean, this has to be an issue statewide. It just seems they like Woodland Park.
Yeah,
Like we all
we're
do.
actually, no, Woodland Park's a beautiful community, so I think that's part of it. But we're actually having a lot of problems with urban deer. It's not only in Buena Vista, Salida, Craig is having issues with urban deer. But one thing that we noticed during the surveys is that the fawn to doe ratio in town was very high, and I think that it was somewhere, was it the 80 fawns per 100 doe? And just a perspective of that in the units around it, in general, we had less than 70 fawns per 100 doe, so it was really high in this area. So. And one point that I'll make with the study that was done in 2004 in Colorado Springs, they found that the majority of deer died from car accidents down there. And in the surrounding area, when we look at deer that are in wildland environments, they typically have a survival rate for does of about 0.75 to 0.8. So the probability that a deer will survive a year is about 75%. The data from Colorado Springs that was done in 2004, it was down around 50%. So they have really high mortality caused by car accidents for animals that are in town.
Go ahead. I wrote down a lot here. So the Air Force Academy do they do a hunt every 2 years or every, how many? I don't know how many years that is. How is that taken by the public?
So that hunt in the Air Force Academy started in 1988, and that was in response to deer vehicle collisions, and then also some concerns about, the same things that Tim talked about, landscaping and the conflicts. Initially, it was not well received by the public, and there was quite a bit of protesting that went on. Gradually over time, I think that people got used to it. And the way that it's administered right now, we give out 15 buck licenses every year and then 15 doe licenses. The individuals who draw those licenses through our regular draw process have to go through a safety orientation at the Air Force Academy, and then members from either the Air Force Academy or Colorado Parks and Wildlife take those individuals around, show them deer that are in safe shooting areas, and then it's actually a rifle hunt, and so the individual hunters are able to take an animal with a rifle, and then we move them out of there. It's conducted during 2 weekends in December, so the hunters, they take about 15 hunters on the first weekend and 15 hunters on the second weekend, and so it's in about just a couple day period that they do that. I didn't bring the data. It's something that I could definitely get to you, but the high number of vehicle collisions was in, I think, the 180 range in about 1986, and then that dropped down to less than 20 per year after the hunt. So the hunt was very, very successful at reducing those deer vehicle collisions, and I do actually have those data. They're just in a different area right now, so it has been very successful and it's been very safe.
I haven't heard any pushback in several years. I was here in '88, and it was a little problematic. They had idiots that would dress like deer and walk through the woods during the hunt in '88. Wow. But since then, it's pretty routine, and I think most people acknowledge it's necessary.
I mean, do they close the academy for those hunts? There's people walking around. I just can't imagine we having hunters walking around Woodland Park.
Yeah, so what they do on the academy is they have very specific areas where we're allowed to take hunters, and they close those areas off. So they have signs on the trails that say, you know, hunt is going on. They're big, bright orange signs. And then, like I said, we take the hunters out to places that we know it's safe. We make sure that there's the appropriate backstop, that they aren't firing into housing developments and things like that. In a lot of places back east where these type of hunts are administered, they'll set up archery blinds in places so that the hunter is in a fixed location, and then they have to take an animal from that blind or from a tree stand. And so that's the way it's done, you know, to handle that issue. Or, you know, you don't necessarily want people walking around with a high-powered rifle in Woodland Park city limits. I don't know that would go over very well. But yeah, so that is how it is administered in other areas. Yeah.
And with that, just using Elizabeth, with my looking around and trying to do some research on this before coming and speaking to you, Elizabeth may be the closest example that I could give you, and that's exactly what they do. They have a qualification course set up with archery equipment. It is very hard for even veteran hunters to use archery equipment often to pass. Then they have specific blinds set up in certain places. There's a property limit. It has to be so many acres, whether it's on city land or private land somewhere. That property has to be so big. And then, say, a deer coming onto the property would be okay to harvest, but if the deer is leaving the property, that deer would not be okay to harvest. So it's very regimented, much more so than what we as an agency have in our regulations. But again, that's what I was saying. You as the city could implement those regulations certainly on that.
Our intent tonight was to make the council and the community aware of this issue. It's growing. We don't think it's going to lessen anytime in the near future. The intent tonight was not to cause fear in the community that we're going to have high-powered rifles walking down Lake Avenue picking deer off in Memorial Park, although if they're eating the new grass, I may want to shoot them. But it's really just to make you aware that we're going to be pursuing this a little bit to see what is a reasonable thing to do. So, press, if you could help not cause wild rumors, I would appreciate that.
Oh, geez.
Deergate, right? Is that what
That's
I heard?
a good one.
Deergate.
Tim, go ahead, Paul.
I'm sorry.
Go right
Would the count for Woodland Park be around 50 deer
With the count,
to eradicate, to kind of bring down?
I'm not sure we have any sort of number in mind. We would have to look down the road towards that, as Mr. Buttery was saying. That's exactly the intent, and I just wanted to present the education of what the population is here in Woodland Park and bring that about. And I know it is. It's a very complex issue, and there are emotions behind it. And certainly, like you were saying, the intent is not to scare anybody tonight, but just here are the options that are out there. And I want to work with you as the city on this and be proactive on this. So I really appreciate your time tonight.
I know we need to move on. This matrix here is Indiana. This state is full of hunters. I could see a lot of bow hunters coming up here and doing it no charge. Would that be considered? Or is that charge go to you to organize it?
So they would be charged to buy a license to hunt.
Right, I understand that.
Right. Other than that, there's not a charge for them to go hunting. It's just to buy the license.
Okay. Well, because the numbers here were the estimated costs. And
right.
So, but this is still Indiana. This is a tough one. I agree. It is emotional. I love the deer seeing in my backyard. It's hard to imagine that I see the numbers, but I still don't know if we have a problem yet.
Sure.
Tim, thank you. Julie, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we'll move on. No additions or deletions tonight. We'll move on to the consent calendar. Suzanne.
Excuse me. We just have the minutes from the May 18th regular city council meeting, Mayor.
Okay, questions, comments? If not, we'll call for motion to approve.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Carr,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Soinier,
Yes.
Sawyer,
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, no unfinished business tonight. We'll move on to ordinances on initial posting, and Mr. Buttery.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm going to present these two ordinances on initial posting. Since Erin's not here this evening, we'll save a little bit of money with her not having to attend. Both these ordinances are about the same issue. She provided you a staff report. I can answer brief questions for you. They have to do with the utilization of items within the public right-of-way for different communications devices that folks might want to attach to them. What I'll tell you is that these ordinances allow us to maintain status quo. If we don't pass these ordinances, then on July 1st we have another bag of worms that we have to deal with. Erin will be here at the June 15th meeting, and so my recommendation this evening is that you, after you have discussion, to accept these on initial posting and set the public hearing for June 15th.
We just do both ordinances after the discussion?
Talk about them together and take them one at a time for a vote.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions, obviously, on initial posting? And Erin's not here for those kinds of questions, so if you have questions, if not, we'll start with ordinance 1307 on approval.
My only question, Mr. Mayor, is that this is driven by the new state statute.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. It's House Bill 1193.
And again, if we did not pass these at some point, we would be dealing with something that would not be covered in current regulation,
That's
city
correct.
regulation. Okay.
That's correct. It continues status quo. If we don't do anything, then that changes on July 1st.
Anybody else? Call for a motion.
Motion to approve 1307 as written. Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Thank you. Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, move on to consider ordinance 1308.
I have another question. Will both of these be posted on the city website? They are now, correct?
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for comment on the city website? Yeah, I'm thinking back to when we passed the first regulation, and we had questions from certain vendors that they wanted that opportunity for input on the website.
I don't know if that exists on the website or not. Suzanne can help me with that, but I know certainly we can accept public comment at any time to include the public hearing on the night of June 15th.
Currently, Mayor Pro Tem, we just post the ordinance. There's nowhere for people to comment on that ordinance.
Except via direct communication back to us.
Or an email, they could send an email.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Motion.
I'd move approval of ordinance 1308 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Sonier?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, David. We'll move on. Public hearings, and Sally Riley looks like she's all
Thank
ready
you.
to go.
Ready to go with item 8A. This is the UPass Saddle Club Concerts and Camping Temporary Use Permit. It's a request from Mary Jo Larson. Unfortunately, Mary Jo has a board meeting tonight, so she was not able to be here. It's very straightforward. They are requesting during 2 of their rodeo events on July 1st and July 29th to have a dance and concert that will extend after 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. and then they're also requesting camping associated with these events. And the camping is from June 30th to July 11th, July 26th through August 1st. Most of the camping will take place during the event itself. The reason they have such an extended period of time is that they need security. Once they have their cattle and horses on site, they are going to have one of their members camp and secure the site for the week prior to the events. So everybody is familiar with the Saddle Club property, which is shown outlined in yellow off of Highway 24 and opposite Trell Road. They do now have a new arena that they're prepping on the north end of this property that will be able to handle their shoots and riding ability. And they submitted a sketch of a site plan that shows the new arena pointed out here. And then they are going to have various food vendors along the highway side. Parking is associated with the upper arena, and they'll also use the lower arena for parking as well. And then the camping will take place on the west side of the arena and the north side of the arena. So they have adequate space to be able to handle all of their events for utilizing this new arena and the older arena site on the south side of their property. We have done the code review associated with the temporary use permits, as well as posted the property for sent out letters, posted the property for the after 9 p.m. time, and there have been referrals within the department in the city. There are no concerns expressed for this. We do have the approval for the concert and dance. The recommendation is to include a number of different conditions which deal with the sound and lighting systems being turned off by 10 p.m. And cleanup by 11, and then that they're responsible for the litter around their area, and that the applicant help us be responsive to any complaints if they're received with the late night occurrences on July 1st and July 29th for those 2 days. And then for the camping, there is a total of 11 criteria or recommendations here dealing with their time period, the designated location, number of units. As I mentioned, they don't anticipate too many folks camping early in the week. It's mostly during the rodeo itself. So they have 2 areas up to 50 units or campers, and that they shall be fully self-contained as camping units. The services, they'll not be connected to water or sewer. They must provide their own water and haul off. They have made arrangements for sewer dumps at appropriate locations. Cleanup is important. Help us if there are any complaints. Lighting, we've asked that they turn off their lights at 9 p.m. as well as their generators, and that they would be subject to our noise complaint. So with that, staff recommends approval of both the concerts and the dances after 9 p.m. on the 2 dates, and the camping.
Thank you, Sally. For myself, because I have some experience since I'm right across the street, this event's been going on for years. Never had a problem. People are very respectful, great event, and so for me at least, I don't see any downside with having this event there at the Saddle Club. It's always been managed well, I think, by the city, and I don't remember ever having any issues.
We've had no complaints in their prior rodeos.
Cool.
Well, I think it's a terrific event for the community, but I did note a discrepancy. Maybe it's just because I'm reading it incorrectly. It does say that the concerts would begin between 7 and 10 p.m., but then the temporary use request is for 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Is that because after 9?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Falls in your belly.
before 9, we can do anything we want. Anybody else? Public comment? Anybody like to comment on these 2 rodeos and events? Okay. If not, we'll call for a motion to consider and approve these 2 requests by the Youth Pass Social Club, Youth Pass Saddle Club, excuse me.
Move to approve.
As written.
Second.
Great, thank you, Suzanne.
Matthews,
Yes.
Soinier,
Yes.
Sawyer,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Levy.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
thank you, Suzanne. Okay, thank you, Sally. We have no new business tonight. I have nobody that signed up for public comment. Is anybody here that hasn't signed up that would like to speak this evening? Small crowd. Okay, we'll move on to reports. And the mayor has a couple of events to announce. Friday, tomorrow from 6:30 to 9, the Swing Factory at the UPass Cultural Center. 6:30 to 9 tomorrow night. Thursday, June 8th, from 7:30 to 9 a.m., the Chamber of Business Roundtable. Ask the Experts at the UPass Cultural Center. RSVP to the Chamber, 687-9885. Friday, June 9th, that's next Friday. Outdoor Summer Farmers Market is back every Friday at the new and improved and ultra beautiful Memorial Park. I think on that note, correct me if I'm wrong, we have our first big event, wedding this Saturday possibly at the...
We do. I'll speak to that in my
Oh, okay,
report.
sorry. I
That's fine.
didn't mean to take your thunder. Wednesday, June 14th, from 5 to 7:30, we'll have that grand opening. Is that Flag Day?
It is Flag Day, and the times are actually 5:30 to 8, with the flag raising and the ceremony at 6 o'clock.
5:30 to 8. That'll be a blast. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of people there that night.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's all I have. Carol?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Nothing?
Just a reminder of the cleanup that was canceled due to the weather. The citywide cleanup will be the 17th, Saturday. All of the things that were announced before will happen again in concert with the Forest Group, which is out at the Impact Church, I think is their organization location, and will be at the Cultural Center still. So just a reminder to everybody to pitch in and help keep Woodland Park beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
I'd like to thank everybody for their participation. And yes, we do have a deer problem, but I was being a little bit offhanded with my comment. It was just, I do appreciate the hard work that all of you do on the city side, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you very much.
Well, Paul, I think you'll agree, and I did. What David said to me really resonated, that the deer is one thing, but the mountain lions is a whole different
It becomes a whole
situation.
nother animal.
And that's something I think, yeah, no pun intended, I know, but that's scary for all of us.
It
Am I
is.
right?
It is very
So,
scary, and it is a problem that we need to, as a city and council, to look at and handle correctly. And I believe we will do so. I really do.
Thank you. Noel?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor.
John?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. No city attorney tonight, so we'll turn it over to our city manager.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of quick updates on the project. We do have our first major event in Memorial Park. It's Saturday afternoon, a wedding, and they will be doing their rehearsal tomorrow afternoon, so we're very excited about that. More so because the 2 kids that are getting married grew up here and have played in that park their entire lives, and so it'll be a very special event. We're very close to wrapping up every single aspect of that. The fountains are on, the restrooms are done. It really is looking nice, and it's coming together very beautifully. The Aquatic Center, again, coming along very nicely as well. I walked through it today. A lot of the paint's up. They've got the drywall up. They're starting to float the floors to put some of the tile up. And they're digging the leisure pool and placing the liner in it and all the piping and all the things associated with that. So unless you have questions for me on those 2 items or other questions for the staff, that concludes our report.
I've got one comment.
our city manager is very excited about the pool, as we all are. But if you have an opportunity to take a tour, we would love to do that for you, and it's pretty fun. It's come so far in the last month or two, just really, really has.
It really has.
Can I ask one question, please? I noticed that the lottery on, was it 11 or 12 sites that Memorial Park was picked as one of the sites? How does that benefit us as a city?
What you're speaking of is Great Outdoors Colorado, which is funded by the Colorado Lottery System, awards annually what they call a Starburst Award for projects that they've had participation with. So they know the projects that they've helped with, and they review them statewide and then announce who the Starburst winners are. There's no monetary gain. It's just a recognition that the council allowed us to do good work with design, get the community involved, and build a really good project.
Well, kudos to you. It is a nice park, and yes, I was just curious.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else? Nothing there. I have one comment, or I have one piece of written correspondence that I've been asked to read into the record to the City of Woodland Park City Council from Tanner Coy. Dear Mayor and Council, maintaining a safe, clean, and attractive central business district is a responsibility shared by Woodland Park citizens and the City of Woodland Park. So far, we together have been able to maintain a minimum acceptable level of cleanliness through coordinated but increasingly costly efforts. You have been given a very limited explanation of the challenge our community is facing. There's a lot more to the problem and the solution than hiring a pressure washing contractor for $10,000. I am committed to helping our community, our city, reach the goals that have been set, and I am not alone. I know the city staff are with me, as are many of the citizens. The obstacles are numerous, but through teamwork, we will persevere. You, the council, are an important part of that teamwork. Please recognize the importance of maintaining our city's most visible, most promoted, highest tax revenue generating single area, our Main Street. Please give city staff the direction and resources they require in order to attain our goals. That direction being to coordinate with the citizens of Woodland Park to ensure the city's downtown area is clean in a manner comparable to last year, done in a way that is compliant with regulation, done as soon as possible, allocating the necessary staff labor and up to $5,000 to accomplish the task. This would be no different than any previous year. I am only asking for a continuation of what we've already accomplished together. Please take this action tonight so the process can move forward without further delay. Our busiest season is already upon us. If for any reason you can't or won't take action tonight, please put this request on the action agenda for your next meeting. Also, please know the citizens of downtown Woodland Park would willingly clean both private and public property with no cost sharing by the city if the storm drain system could be used for drainage, or if either of the city's water vac trucks and operators could be used to capture and dispose of the wastewater. Thank you again for your consideration. Signed, Tanner Coy.
Mayor.
Sir.
So that brought up a couple thoughts on this. One, I noticed driving the other day, and maybe this is for you, Dave, that the drains right by the sidewalks were just full of dirt. Is there a time frame where the sweeper will come through and get that? And then I also noticed that there was a group of, I don't know if they were employees, but they were covering the drains with sandbags. Do you have any, I don't know what was going on there. I was just hoping you could elaborate.
Sure, I'd be happy to. The federal law requires that we place those filter bags along drain inlets so that as construction work is done, a limited amount of debris gets into the storm drain system. Okay. So those were placed there by the contractors that are doing the work on the signal systems, replacing the poles. So you'll see most of those are around those areas. And when they're done and they clean everything up, they'll remove those filter bags from those inlet areas.
Okay, good. And then I guess you wanted to say anything about the Hawk system.
I do, but I want to, before we're off of this one, Councilmember Soniero suggested that we contact CDOT to see if they could help us with this situation. I'll be meeting with them in the next couple of weeks. That's one of the topics that we're going to discuss. Most of the grit that's on the highway is from their salt sand trucks. A lot of it is brought onto the road from our own snowplow and de-icing procedures, but the vast majority is from them. So we'll see if they can help us out. I'm not hopeful, but we'll see if they can. But the letter from Mr. Coy, at the last council meeting, he made his plea, and council didn't direct the staff to do anything, so we didn't. So he's asking you to consider this, and that's certainly in your court. As I mentioned to you, we know what the contracting process is to make this cleanup work. What I said to you was that if we're going to invest that $5,000, then I would need you to take that from the reserve fund that we have.
And if it's, go ahead, John.
I have a question for David, and would you give us an update on the search for a Director of Public Works?
Let me just finish this first, okay? Just real quick, and then we'll go with whatever questions you have. Just relative to Mr. Coy's letter, is it acceptable to everybody to have this as an action item? Because we're not going to discuss it today. And if it is that the process, Susanna? What do we need to do?
Just direct me.
Paul?
I was going to talk to Coy's letter about spending this money, but if we...
I don't know if today is the right time or not.
You know, this is, I suppose, if I think through this, if you're going to reduce the emergency fund, because that was adopted by ordinance, then you would need to change it by ordinance. We can certainly lean, and that's a two-meeting process, so we're looking at early July before we could accomplish anything. We can certainly begin the process, if you're thinking that's what you want to do, to set something up so that we can begin the process of getting that cleanup work done.
I really, may I speak?
Please.
I'm against spending this money. I really believe that private property can clean up their property, and the city can honestly clean the streets as they do every year. If the emergency funds were going to be reduced for anything, it should be reduced for many of the organizations that are nonprofit in the city that could use the money. I certainly appreciate Coy and everything he has done for the city, and in no way do I disrespect his intentions, but it's money that we should hold on to in our city coffers and see what CDOT will do for us, if anything, and certainly we can all get together. You know, the businesses, I don't own a business downtown, but they can get together and clean their storefronts and everything else. That's the way I feel about it. And I'm just letting my thoughts be known.
We'll do our best to get our sidewalks clean with the equipment that we have.
I think there's several ways to do this, and I'm not sure that it's, I think it might be a good idea to put it on the agenda to discuss it, at least, and then maybe have some other ideas. I've talked to Main Street, and there's DOLA money out there. There's things like potentially, I shouldn't say it's just sitting there easily available, but there might be other ways to approach this, and maybe a public discussion about it would be useful. That's just my feeling.
I agree. No?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Paul here. I think our reserve should be spent on emergency things. For example, security cameras would be very important at this time. And so I believe there's other ways to find this money. I did suggest it at the last council meeting. I believe Main Street could find some money to do that because it is the main street. So they could probably find the 5,000 somewhere through DOLA. But I believe that money, the emergency money, should be spent on emergencies.
Carol?
Well, I don't know if Tanner has presented this letter as a business owner or as the treasurer of the DDA, but the DDA did have a budget line for $10,000 that was briefed to the council during our budget discussions as money to be used for this very purpose. At the last meeting, Tanner indicated that no, that had maybe some other uses for that money, that $10,000, and that's why he was looking for $5,000 from the city. The assumption that the city is required to provide this money is based on the fact that the city did this out of a general fund that was much healthier at the time. Discussion of other ways to address the issue, because actually I agree with Tanner in that the district, the business district is our moneymaker. But like Paul said, those are owned by private, those are owned privately. The city does take care of the property that is belongs to the city. There might be some other ways to address this. I don't think it needs to be put back on the agenda at the next meeting. I think it is a good topic for Main Street. I'm intrigued by Tanner's assumption that there's some kind of water vac truck that could capture and dispose of wastewater. I don't know if that is possible or not. But in terms of guilting us into providing $5,000 when the DDA already had a $10,000 budget line is not appropriate.
John, you want to weigh in on this?
I agree with what Carol has said, and I even thought the line item was called beautification.
But he briefed it as money to be used to clean the streets, or pressure wash specifically.
Yes. Well, it sounds like everybody agrees with what I had to say in some regard at the last meeting. And so if we don't put it on an action as an action item, I think everybody agrees also that we can further investigate and try to find a way, whether it be through CDOT or Main Street, whatever we can do to help. I think we're all in agreement. I don't see anyone that's in agreement with spending $5,000 of our emergency fund to clean downtown. So how can we discuss this at the next meeting without having an action item, or should we just throw this to, maybe we just throw this to Main Street? Val, and you can lead in that regard?
Yeah, I when he first mentioned this, I threw out something to the board, but we're going to meet here shortly.
You want to do that and then come back to us?
Yeah, I'm interested in the water vac situation that you guys could speak to, if that helps or not, that he mentioned in here, the collecting the water and stuff. But I will certainly bring it up at that point. We find DOLA money for all kinds of things. I'm always shocked at what they're just throwing it away and handing away everything. If we could find marijuana cigarettes in the gutter, we could probably get marijuana money. But I will certainly bring that up as a agenda item.
And we will continue as a staff to look at other opportunities as well. The city does have 2 Vector trucks that do have the ability to do some cleaning. The dilemma we have, and Kip will help me if I'm not getting this accurately, is the disposal of it. So the entity, the contractors that we hire, suck up the water and all the sediment and all the oil and grit, and they dispose of it in a legal way. We can't do that. We can't even put it into our wastewater treatment plant. It makes very little sense, because when it rains, it washes that stuff into the storm sewer and it heads to Fountain Creek. But yet we don't have the ability to collect it and then treat it in our system. So he's correct that we do have the ability to pull that water in at maybe 500 gallons a time, but we can't take the next step and dispose of it. So that's one of the reasons why we'll work with CDOT and see what they can do. It may not be an issue of cleaning. Probably 15 years ago, we partnered with CDOT at my predecessor's instigation to have them use more mag chloride downtown than salt sand, because we were having that issue of too much grit. And we bought the tank that they use to store the mag chloride in. It seems to me they've been using less and less of that over the last few years. We changed CDOT patrols that control this area. They used to be managed out of the Springs Now they're managed out of Fair Play, or Leadville Fair Play, I think. So they have a different philosophy. So we're going to talk those kinds of things to see if we can prevent the issue of the grit from occurring, or so much of it.
Great, thank you. Now, John, you want to, let's go back to where you were before.
Yes, I was asking David if he could provide an update on the search for the Director of Public Works.
Be happy to. We've interviewed 5, I think, total. We currently have an offer to one, and I should hear back tomorrow from that individual.
Thank you.
The Hawk system, congratulations, it's completed.
It is.
I've waited in line for it, as many people have. So it does work well.
Yes, sir.
And I want to give it to you now. How about that?
Again, a great partnership with the Colorado Department of Transportation to install that system. One of the fears that was going through our Facebook page was that an increase in rear end accidents. And Chief, I don't know that we've had any. It hasn't been activated that long. It seems to be working well. People seem to be responding to it. I've only witnessed it flashing once, but I saw the people crossing and they looked like they felt safe. So I think it's working well. Yes, sir.
Is there any way, perhaps, I don't know, all channels, I know Channel 13 and does a lot here in Woodland Park, to make that announcement so a lot of the public in Colorado Springs, or when they come up here to go west, they're at least made aware that this new signal light is there, and maybe are a little more aware that they may have to stop more often coming through town, which I'm sure they'll love. But maybe it'll prevent some of those rear-enders if
Sure.
at least make the word known. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but I think if we went out to all those outlets, maybe they would make a note of it.
Our press has been very helpful in doing that, and so we'll reach out to those stations as well.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Anything else, council? Okay, thank you all for being here.